Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Standards Learning and Accountability Committee meeting. I'm going to emphasize that board members, we speak into the mic so that the minutes will be accurate and everyone can hear what we say. So we're emphasizing that throughout the day. At this time, we don't have any media present, and so we'll go about approving the minutes. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. At this time, we have no one signed up for public comment. We thank you to everyone that is here, that is concerned about the business of education in our state. Our first presentation is going to be the Uniform Grading Procedure Task Force, and Dr. Duggins is going to present for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lynn. Good morning, everyone. You heard Philip Cease in an earlier subcommittee talk about the grade floor bill that was passed, and this task force is part of that grade floor bill. So the grade floor bill has several components. One, of course, is the grade floor. So now teachers are tasked with recording the grade earned in the grade book, and so doing away with any grade floor recording. The other component is a proviso that was in place last year around formative assessments. Formative assessments, as administered 3 times a year in school districts, should not be recorded in grade books. Another component of that bill is the credit and content recovery. Students must complete all required assignments in order to be eligible for credit and content recovery. And then another component of the grade floor bill is establishing a task force to revisit our uniform grading policy. It's been almost a decade since that has been revisited, and so I bring forward to you the task force recommendations. The bill is very clear in who should serve on this task force. It's 3 of each: superintendents, principals, teachers, students, and local school board members. And so we worked to ensure a solid representation, both regionally and representing size of district. And so that committee of 15 members is there before you in your packet. What questions can I answer?
Question.
Yeah.
Did they apply to be on this committee? How was the selection?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ms. Krinmacher. So we, in a memo that we sent out, there was a nomination form, and we asked for superintendents to bring forth names, and then we also took nominations. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the motivation in having this task force?
To revisit the uniform grading policy.
Maybe you can answer this question. Everything I read says that the grades are increasing in school. Kids' grades are increasing, and the graduation rates are increasing, and standardized tier scores seem to go down, 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 down. I was hoping you were going to tell me it's because of the degradation in the amount of learning that seems to be taking place in the classroom. But is this workforce going to address the methods for determining grades and the mathematical formula? I mean, I know most of what I took in school, in high school and in college. It was the standardized testing curve, and you all had a bell shape, and you know, and the 10% over here and 10% over here, and 80% was right in the middle, and it was heavily concentrated around the CB area. And but now I understand that kids are getting all A's and graduating from school and can't read at the 6th grade level. How does that happen?
So, Mr. Harrington, those are great questions, and really, I think this bill in its totality speaks to that. So the main component of it is doing away with that grade floor, which has led to inflation of grades in some cases. So we have districts in schools that have a minimum grade that can be administered. Some districts will say a student can't earn less than a 50. And so that's led to some grade inflation. This bill puts a stop to that and says teachers must record the grade that a student earns. So if a student earns a 34% and only has 34% mastery of a concept, as demonstrated by their work, that is the grade that is recorded. So no more minimums.
Follow-up question is, most schools have incentive pay programs for teachers?
We are piloting strategic compensation, but that strategic compensation is based on the standardized
I just
testing.
wonder what the motivation is for changing grades. I hear, every time I turn around, I hear about somebody else caught changing grades after the students, before graduation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Tech Center, I think last week it was down in Horry, Georgetown County.
Oh,
Staff was changing grades. And the explanation that I got when I asked that question to someone down there, they said, well, it's because of the incentive program. We pay, if the students do better on grades, then they make more money. So they could change those grades and they could get more money.
the strategic comp that we run through the department is based on either the summative SC Ready or the formative assessments. So it's standardized testing, so it's not grade based.
Yeah, it just
Please
kinda
talk in the
frustrates me when I hear all the work that goes into trying to enrich teachers and provide new subject matter and provide professional training and all of this stuff, and yet it doesn't seem to be getting into the character or the method of how we teach and assign grades or calculate grades, and it seems like we're headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah. I think this bill is working to right that ship, and I think the work of the Uniform Grading Policy Task Force will bring uniformity truly among the districts in the state. That's the goal.
I hope so.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I firmly believe that this has been needed. And what I'm interested in now is with a uniformed grading procedure in place, and we know exactly where the student is in their academic learning process. Is there in place uniformly across districts now to handle those students that are below and need help? Will each district have that ability to address that?
So this bill speaks to credit and content recovery, which I think is what you're getting at, Ms.
Yes.
Allison. And so the bill brings uniformity to that component in the fact that in order to be eligible for credit or content recovery, students must complete all required assignments. And so there may have been instances in the past where a student was not doing the work to complete the course and was put into credit recovery, and this bill does away with that. So students must be doing work, getting support from their instructors along the way in order to be eligible. Yeah, thank you.
Abby, I would say I recognize some of the names here. I think you've got a good committee. That I think you'll get some good feedback on the uniform grading policy. I think to Mr. Harrington's concerns, this could be a great start for his concerns where there's no grade inflation, and those students who need credit recovery meet the requirements to get it, and if they don't, they cannot participate.
That's
So
right.
I think that's a great start.
Yeah, thank you.
But this is elementary all the way through, or is this?
It is.
So we'll be ready for the fallout from this. Because some children don't do well first semester or first quarter, and then they come back and do very well.
Yeah.
But if you have a 10, when you average it out, they will not pass.
Yes.
So I think the spirit of having the floor, and I'm not going to tell you that it's a perfect system and that I totally agree with it. I think that's kind of why it was put in place. It gives a child the opportunity to pass. Because if that score is really low, that first 9 weeks or whatever, there's a chance even, you know what happens when you average 100 and a 0. So that is just to give the child an opportunity to pull it together, especially if they do well and to pass. So that's the other side, and I'm sure
Yes.
everyone knows that,
Yeah.
because that's a little bit of what I hear. But teachers are still in charge of their grade books, yes? Or is it going to be, are they going to be told you have to grade a certain number of quizzes, a certain number of classroom grades, or is it going to be that specific?
No, there
Okay.
is no language in the law that
Okay.
dictates what will be in the grade book, but it is simply the no more grade floors and then the eligibility through the completion of assignments.
Okay.
I'm not on the committee, but I would like to say that as long as it's understood that there is a very adequate emphasis on remediation and the ability for students to do better on the same skill, to me, there's no issue with retesting a student once remediation has taken place. And as long as it's not a one and done kind of thing on the testing, I'm all for what they're putting in place. But that emphasis on our job is to build skills,
Right.
and some students it takes longer.
Right, absolutely. And Ms. Elmore and Ms. Lynn, to your points, I think this is where we're really going to be able to lean on the power of our MTSS teams, those structures we have in place in schools to ensure students don't get to the point where there's no chance for recovery.
No chance.
Yeah,
And we will have to keep that in mind.
yeah,
And I agree. Excuse me, there's a lot of research done with grading and going back and letting the child, if they get it after the test, do you go back and say, you got this, and put the grade in the grade book, or you say, you did not get this in time, even though you got it after the test, and that's the end of it, and so here's your grade, and sorry. So there's a lot of research out there about grades, and we're gonna have to be aware, and I agree with everything you said. Remediation, as well as, we may need to look at, as districts and as schools, how we're grading, to make sure that a child does have a chance and that they know what they need to know to move on. So thank you.
thank you.
That's some great professional development that the school districts can go ahead and hone into.
That's right.
I had 4 high school students too just graduated, but I know from hearing from them, credit recovery was a joke to a lot of students. That they messed around, they didn't do their assignments, and then they came to credit recovery and it was always forgiven. So I think it's wonderful that they're addressing this, and hopefully we can see some action out of that.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mr. Trent.
And that is more in line with high schools with the credit recovery,
Yes.
just for the record. Are there any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the Uniform Grading Procedure Task Force?
Cato makes a motion.
Thank you.
Cato.
Cato made the motion. Is there a second?
Sure, Hanley.
Okay. Hanley made the second. Thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. The motion carries. For information, high-quality instructional materials implementation. And Dr. Duggins, you'll do it again,
Yes.
Dr. Duggins, and you'll be assisted by, okay, Dr. Monsager.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lynn, and Lila Toll Monsager, who is really the architect and heart behind this work, will be joining me at the podium in just a moment to talk about our high-quality instructional materials implementation work. And you've heard me mention it through the course of last year when I gave academic updates at the close of our board meetings, just little updates about the work we're doing with the implementation of high-quality instructional materials. In South Carolina, we've always been really good at curating a list of textbooks for districts to choose from and shipping those textbooks out, and then with a hope and a prayer, they got into the hands of our teachers and our students. In the past year, we've become really intentional about supporting the implementation to ensure that those high-quality instructional materials that are aligned to our standards reach our students. You know that we have recently revised and you have approved our ELA standards and then our math standards, and coupled with those standards revisions have been new assessments, but then also new textbooks. And so we, over the course of the year, have worked really intentionally with districts and schools to ensure that implementation. primarily with our math and our literacy instructional visions. So a lot of words on these slides. We tried to bold the most important, but these are the things that we think about and we talk about when we are considering best instructional practices for our students. So making sure that we have high quality standards, and I think we really got it right with the ELA and math standards this time around. We know that our ELA standards are grounded in the science of reading. They ensure all students get that really strong foundation in literacy skills. Our math standards are founded in what we call the CRA model, the concrete representational abstract. You heard Ms. Shumpert a couple months ago speak to you about that math instruction and how it really provides that solid instructional footing for our students so they can progress through mathematics and achieve at those higher levels. So these two instructional visions for literacy and math have really been a driver of our work as we've engaged with the field. Sorry, I lost my notes there for a second. At this time, I'm going to ask Lila to come join me, and she's going to talk a little bit about what this past year has looked like for our students and our educators in South Carolina. Yeah.
And I'll just start by saying the change to implement materials sounds easy, right? We are so blessed and lucky the legislature funded new math books and new English textbooks, and districts got to pick them. And so if we just let teachers unpack them and tell them to use them, that'll work. And what we know from states, from Ms. Lynn's lived experience, from states that have gone ahead of us, and from how intensive our standards are focused on critical thinking, you can't just take it out of a box and do it. You have to have skillful conversations and collaboration between teaching teams. What are we definitely going to use? What are we all going to agree to look like? What does this look like in our course of the week based on the number of minutes that we have with these students? How are we going to sequence this? Are there any parts of this that we're looking at our standards and we don't see quite enough of a match, so we do need a little supplement? Those conversations take time and they take skill. And so when we were thinking about the strategy for this year to go beyond, please unpack the textbooks, you have them, good luck, to how do we really support this change, the strategy was really important because we know that those commodities like time and teacher collaboration and understanding of those materials are all really hard to pull off, and it's not just one brilliant teacher doing it in her classroom. You need a system to work together. So we picked 3 different groups of folks to focus on, and we started with the coaches that work at the South Carolina Department of Education. We are very fortunate to have folks working on literacy directly with our schools that struggle the most in having students succeed with their literacy skills. We have new math coaches who are working directly with schools and districts who need a push in math. And then we have transformation coaches that are working with our schools, primarily that have achievement scores that are scoring in the bottom 5%. We also understood that districts have a role to play in deciding how all of this rolls out. So we really focused on chief academic officers. And then finally, we offered a leadership academy where school and district leaders could come together, bring a team with a teacher, with a special ed teacher, with a principal, with a district office person, to really think about if you were rolling this out well, here's what it looks like, and to have support from national partners who have done this work across the country. We're excited to share with you some of the results of that strategy. So if we go across the first row, we did have strong participation from our South Carolina Department of Education coaches, our chief academic officers, and in the Leadership Academy, and you can see those numbers there. We did find out with our coaches, there's some teams, like our early learning coaches who go to our CERDEP classrooms, this was not the right time for them to really focus on HQIM. They're involved in some work around what that looks like in early childhood, but it wasn't the time to focus with them. Similarly, our coaches that serve our districts that are under state control, they needed to be in those districts this year. And in one case, one of them was serving as superintendent. So that's where we saw some participation numbers slightly lower for our coaches. We did, as far as scale and the post-assessment, we saw a pretty good participation with our chief academic officers. Over half of our districts received some support, and we had almost a third of our districts more intensively participate in our leadership academy, and almost 84% of our coaches participated. And then what we found out is folks that participated in these supports that were specifically focused on our toolkits. How do you do this well? How do you use this curriculum in schools? If you're a teacher, if you're a principal, if you're a district office person, how do you set it up? That over 94% of our district folks and our school and district folks felt that they were adequately prepared to lead. So what we're doing works, and we're starting to see folks access those supports. If we look at the next slide.
Before we leave that slide.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Do I have unrealistic expectations? Those participation numbers look low to me.
So this is where we can talk about carrots and sticks, Dr. Haney. When we have a grade floor bill that the legislature says you must do this, teachers can't give a grade that isn't exactly what the kids earned. When we started letters training, all we could do is say, this is amazing training, but no one was saying it's required. When Read to Succeed passed and said you have to do letters training, that's when everyone else came along. We're in that early phase of we've adopted these materials. You have to use materials aligned to the standards. Let's start with those that are most excited to take this change on with us. So when I look at 27% of our districts and 151 people that said, I want to be out in front with this, that tells me something. I also think there are a number of districts. Edgefield was one that I think Superintendent Weaver will perhaps talk about today in her update that's further ahead. They didn't necessarily need our support because they already had a strategy for doing this. Okay. But excellent question. If this were mandated, I would be unhappy with these numbers. Because it's not, I'm pretty excited. And Dr. Duggins will talk to you about how we want to get more districts on board for year 2.
So we're just at the leading edge right now.
We're just at the leading edge.
All right.
This is a new
I feel
idea.
better now, thank you.
That we would help people use their materials is something, it's not a space we've been in before as the department.
Let me just say this. Yeah. You need to add to your selling point.
Yes, ma'am.
Because like my Title I money every year is getting cut now because budgets are, that's what's happening in the real world.
Yep.
But I remember being asked, we have a new Title I director, and she said, Ms. Lynn, how are you going to handle these cuts? And what do you do when you lose this kind of money, almost 10% kind of every year? And one thing that I was able to tell her was because we have these new materials, the HQIM, because they come with so many pieces, because it is digital, because it is consumable books, because it has remediation and it has, from our high children to gifted and talented children, it serves them. I'm not spending money trying to buy a program to supplement my curriculum now, or I don't have to try to pay this person to come in and do this professional development because this HQIM is handling, it's not perfect. Just like you said, we have to work together and figure out where we need to beef it up, for lack of better terms. But the money that I'm not getting is money that I normally use to supplement and try to get teachers not to go out and find something that is below grade level because we love these babies and Jackie's not reading on grade level. So a selling point to a district level person would be, this is saving you a lot of money and teachers a lot of time because it is so compact. The reading series we had, it is so big. We spent a day just taking, unpacking it, putting it on the table, looking at all the resources when we first received it. So that may help with your participation numbers, and they need to get to know it to see what it can do for students. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Lila, I'm just assuming another selling point would be the hours that they work toward this would count for their certificate renewal?
Certainly. It's part of that embedded, it all goes together, right? That embedded professional development that's about what you're teaching the next day. As far as scale goes, we are thankful that based on the folks that participated in those 3 categories, we are reaching already, just through that Leadership Academy, 27% of the students in South Carolina, and that we're representative of all of those subgroups that we want to make sure that we're supporting well. And 65% of students statewide are represented if you count all of those 3 trainings together. So we do see a little bit more scale there. Finally, yes, sir, Mr.
One more.
Harrington.
Back on that other slide where you said
Sure.
that 27% were receiving intense and enthusiastic training.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, can you tell us about that 27%? I mean, is it characteristic of large schools? Is it?
Excellent question. We saw a mix of, if we're talking district size, we saw a mix of some of our largest districts. So Beaufort was one of the ones that came out with us last year and was there right away, and some of our smaller districts and our charter schools. So it was also representative of a mix there. And then you can see here that the students served in those schools also include a mix of students. High poverty, low poverty, big district, small district, high percentages of English learners, lower percentages. Yep. The last statistic I'll share with you is whenever you do something at the State Department, it's hard to know if it is actually helping. We can give all the surveys we want, and people are pretty nice to us on surveys generally. They say nice things about us, because usually the people working with them are very skilled and friendly and care about them and listen to them. But surveys don't tell us if this is getting down to students. So one way we changed our approach is we asked our transformation, math, and literacy coaches to go out and see classrooms of folks who were working with us on using these materials, classrooms of folks who were not working with us. We conducted 471 observations with a tool that's just about, are you using the materials, is that increasing the rigor, and are you seeing deep thinking from students in English and math? We did 471 observations, 53 districts, 129 schools. We see some real progress. 83% of those English classrooms were using the high-quality materials, only 63% of our math classrooms. That makes sense. We're a year ahead in English than we are in math. So we have some real evidence this is happening in classrooms. We need to get in more classrooms, and we need to support now more. So our lessons learned from this year, we probably need to better support coaches and school leaders with what does this training look like in my school? How do I make time to get my teachers to spread out the materials? How do we build this into our professional learning communities, into our planning time that we have? We still need to do work with our coaches. This is the first time many of our coaches across offices had sat together and worked to think about the same topic, even though they have special expertise in literacy, math, or transformation, and we have more work to do there. And then we need to really focus on what are those practices and how do they align to planning, resources, and budget, as Ms. Lynn spoke. We are working on a unified application where districts can plan their funding in one place with these high priority actions in mind. And with that, I will share the mic with Abby for what we're thinking for year 2.
Let me ask something that Ms. Lynn said about Title I. So as Title I continues to decrease, and I'm speaking probably for rural district, I don't know, I cannot say what it looks like statewide, but as Title I decreases, then instructional support positions are decreasing. Does the department have a way to survey school districts or get this information on what support systems they're losing so the department knows as a whole who needs an increased amount of support as we implement new curriculum, new standards? Because that's what's happening with your Title I. So many districts rely on Title I for salaries for math coaches, reading, not necessarily reading coaches, but interventionists, and those are starting to go away with the decrease of Title I and federal funds.
I think that's a really great point, Superintendent Haney, and I think the work that we're doing to level set with our coaches here at the agency so we can provide those supports and fill those gaps. We have increased the number of math specialists we've hired. We've held steady with our literacy specialists, so being able to deploy those staff members to districts that may not have a math coach. Of course, we have state-funded reading coaches in our schools, but to close that gap particularly in math.
And I know some just need to ask, but some may not be asking
Yeah.
for that help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. This is really exciting work, and this is truly the work. And when we think about the Division of College Career and Military Readiness, all of the different initiatives that can and have existed, we have gotten really intentional about pulling them together, aligning them, making sure that we have a coherent plan. And I think in just this 1 year, this work has moved us so far ahead in that work. And you heard Lila and you felt her excitement, and those numbers are really exciting. But we wouldn't be here without Lila's tenacity. So I want to give her that credit because we have moved so quickly, but in thoughtful ways, making sure that we are bringing our districts on board, much the way we did with the Palmetto Literacy Project, starting with the most vulnerable and then scaling up to the Coalition of the Willing, and then finally in a phase 3 statewide rollout. Palmetto Math is following that same, and this HQIM implementation is right there with it. Because we have shown our districts how we are going to scale up, we really are moving, as Covey would say, at the speed of trust. And so as we recruited for our second Leadership Academy, we had to wait list some schools and districts, and we will have a third academy. So that's an exciting problem to have. We have also built out a curriculum cohort fellowship, and we had hoped to recruit about 30 people. We had to cap it at 60, and we had 300 applicants. And those are educators who want to become the expert in the curricula that their district has adopted. And so we are able to provide that support here at the state level that would then cascade down to their districts. So what you see on this slide, our year 2 program design, this is not more stuff. This is deepening the stuff that we're already getting right. So year 1, we have built this foundation. We have started the conversations with our districts. We have started that kind of contagious atmosphere. People want to be a part of this work. So in year 2, we're really strengthening that work. We are ensuring that coherence and then measuring implementation. I think one of the other strategic things we did from the very start was tap the power of our newly established Office of Accountability and Research. And so Dr. Van Holden attends our weekly meetings, sometimes bi-weekly meetings, as we talk about HQIM implementation, and he has been really integral in making sure that we have those numbers, we have that data so we can measure impact. And then in year 3 of this work, it's just that sustaining and scaling. So how can that touch point of 27% of districts truly be a statewide touch point? So here are our priorities as we go into year 2, and you'll be hearing updates about this over the course of this coming year. Our message is really clear to districts. HQIM is the core strategy for all learners. And so as this work has evolved, we've also been having the conversation with schools and districts that if we are saying this Tier 1 instruction through the implementation of our high-quality instructional materials is the way to close achievement gaps, is the way to move students forward, we need to make sure that all students have access. And so in a lot of situations and for years with the best intentions, we have pulled students with disabilities and multilingual learners from core instruction to provide them with specialized instruction that may be a different curriculum. It may be supplemental. What we are working now is to say, let's use, Ms. Lynn, you mentioned the differentiated resources in the curriculum. Let's make sure teachers know how to access that. So if I'm struggling, I am provided instruction with the aligned, differentiated curricular pieces to support me as a learner. If I am a gifted and talented student, like Ms. Lynn mentioned, there are differentiated materials within that HQIM as part of the curriculum that students should access. So Tier 1 high-quality instruction is for all students. We're also making sure that real drive to make sure that this training reaches all of our districts. I mentioned the Leadership Academy, I mentioned the curriculum cohort. Any touch point we can have with our districts just strengthens and spreads this work. And then finally, that final point, HQIM is our primary focus, and we need to reduce the noise. So when we think about supplemental materials, when we think about competing initiatives, if we say HQIM is our strategy, HQIM is our strategy. And so we have gotten really clear about looking at our division, the professional learning that we provide to the field, and making sure that everything feeds into this messaging. So there is no confusion, there are no mixed messages from SCDE staff out in the field. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Dr. Duggins.
Yeah.
Two things. One is a comment and one's a question. I hope the General Assembly sees what good their funding is doing. You can't do it without that funding. And so I hope you'll have at some point a time to share with them what the return on investment they're getting. So
Thank you for that point. You are right. The textbook adoptions have been a
Incredible.
heavy financial lift. And so this truly is being good stewards of taxpayer money.
my second question is, went to the Palmetto Summit
Yes.
and heard Shalane Sharma with Zern Math.
Yes.
I was real impressed.
Yeah.
The missing link for me, I didn't know that was Singapore Math, which I've heard for years. But Zern Math is it at HQIM?
Yeah.
So it's available to our districts?
Yes, Zern is available to our districts. It is aligned to our math standards, and Zern recently, it's been just in the past few months, they have started providing within the platform direct ties to the different adopted curricula.
Good.
So that's another thing that we've really challenged our partners to do. Modern Classrooms is another math partner that you've heard us talk about before. They make videos to help teachers teach math standards. We have new math standards. They look very different than our past 2015 standards. And so Modern Classrooms builds video modules so teachers can teach those standards. And the videos at the front seem to be curriculum agnostic because they just speak to the standards. But then as the video progresses, it ties, if you are using this adopted curricula, this is in chapter 5 section, it ties back to the different curricula. And so Zern has started doing that as well. So as students are working through their modules, teachers can see, oh, if David needs more practice with this, I can take him back to this section in our adopted curriculum. So that's what
incredible.
good partners do.
Yeah. So is it an option? Zern Math, an option?
Zern is an option, but we have had great uptake with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
and expect to continue to see that growth because kids love it, teachers love it. It's also it's not the purpose of it, but teachers can learn a lot about how to teach the standards in different ways through those modules in Zern. We have Zern coaching that we have a cap. We have 150 schools that we could serve with a Zern coach, and we had to cap that as well. The demand was so great for that coaching. So
Good. That's impressive.
yeah, thank you.
And this is only a comment, but this information is powerful, really good stuff. And is there a chance when the IMAC committee meets again that this information will be shared with them?
Sure, that's a great idea, Ms. Cato.
So,
Yeah.
really good
I
stuff.
would also say it doesn't work if we don't check it in school. If I don't follow through and make sure that happens in the building, it's not going to be enforced. There are a few people that will, and some, I mean, it's just how it is. So the expectation has to fall all the way down to the school levels.
Yeah.
The resources are there, and we appreciate it. And again, there are no perfect resources,
Right.
but these are good, and we do appreciate that. And are there any additional questions, comments?
One question, like on the summary under economic impact, it just says NA, but I know there's obviously funding that's helping with this. Can we get a breakdown maybe of what the state has allotted for these materials, and then what cost districts might have incur, or if they haven't already?
Yeah.
Maybe just an update or something like that. That'd be good.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, Mr.
Yeah.
Trent.
Any more questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the hard work and the vision. We appreciate that. Is there a motion to place item action number 1 on the consent agenda?
Cato makes the motion.
Cato, thank you. Cato made the motion. Is there a second?
Hanley, second.
Thank you, Hanley. There is a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. The motion carries. Is there any other business for this committee? Thank you. Being none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Cato.
Cato, thank you. Cato made the motion. Is there a second? Hanley, thank you, Hanley. Yes, the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the like sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much, y'all.
Okay.